In today's video, I'm going to be delving into a one-on-one magical topic about how to cast a spell. So if you're interested in this topic to learn more about magic and how to cast a spell, then do get yourself a nice hot drink, settle back, relax, and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're well and enjoying 2024 so far. I feel like in a way January has gone really fast and at the same time really slowly. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but maybe it's just the time of the year and the vibes. But I'd love to hear how you're all doing in the comments. If you are in this wintering sort of vibe like me, but sort of preparing seeds, as it were, for the Sabbats to come. Right now we're a little bit off of Imbolc, so I am preparing myself for getting myself into that space, but I'm not sure I'm going to be there, to be honest. And I might be outwardly doing things like preparing seeds, quite literally, and preparing for what it is I want to manifest, but actually there's still so much resting to do, so much healing to do. And if you're interested to learn more about that from my perspective, one of my previous videos I talked just after the winter solstice about the energies that I'm moving through and the healing that I've been working on and what's coming up for me in a lot more of a personal way. If you want to discover more about what I'm going through, you can see that video. And in my previous video, of course, I listed the favourite books that I read last year, and I really enjoyed filming that. And there were so many books, it was a really long video, so if you stuck to the end, that's amazing. But yeah, I'm really curious as to where everyone else is, because I feel so much energetic change at the moment. It's obviously in the stars and the planets as well. I'm just curious as to how everyone else is doing. So just drop me a comment below, let me know. If you're new to the channel, thank you for joining. Please do drop me a like and subscribe if you are interested to see more and hear more from me, and also share it with anyone else who you think would be interested. This, of course, is a 101 beginner kind of topic. However, having said that, I do feel that I'm going to go into some areas today that intermediate and advanced practitioners alike may enjoy delving into, because I think these topics are really great to revisit every so often, and stripping back your practice every few years has been so nourishing for me over the years, because I began my practice when I was 11 and I am now 36, so I'm a very different human, like physiologically, psychologically, in all the ways, emotionally, and I do things very differently now. I've learned a lot more, and there are a lot of things that I learned in my practice in my teens when I was just cutting my teeth, as they say, that, you know, I made mistakes, and like, but also we were in a different world back then. Like, we didn't have the things that we have now available, and so things are really different now. But I wanted to share from my perspective this topic, which I think is really valuable to see it from this lens, because I think that it's not just 1, 2, 3 and you're done, you know, because a lot of these things have nuances to them. There's a lot that is dependent on you and the way you work, your practice, your worldview, the way you move through the world, your energy, and also your origin, you know, your place of birth and your genetics, your culture, etc. So, you know, some of this may be relevant to you and some of it may not, and some of it might be new to you, some of it you might have heard before. So I will just say, as a disclaimer, of course, take what resonates and leave the rest. This is what is true for me and from my research and what I have learned over the years practicing. However, it might not be the same for you, and some things may resonate and other things may not. So, you know, take it if it resonates, and if not, that's also fine. And if there are other things that I don't touch on in this video, because every video, I really wish it could be like comprehensive, but that's never possible, right? And I'm also, of course, learning, always learning. I am always a student, always. So yeah, there's always more to the story. So I would also love the comments below to become like a safe space where people can discuss these topics as well. And there's no reason why people can't have multiple beliefs at one time as well. That's something that I feel. There's always nuance, and two seemingly opposing ideas or concepts may also be true at the same time. So don't discount that, you know. I think that it's really important to move through this kind of practice with a sense of open-mindedness, and that I always like to feel that my opinions may be subject to change, and that's not in a flaky way. You know, I have my morals, I have my ethics, but what I mean is that I don't know the absolute truth. I don't believe anybody does. Nobody has that. You know, I am a human being, a spiritual being, but I am living in this human vessel. So that's where I'm coming from it at. I hope that some of this does resonate for you. Let me know what you think in the comments as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your practice. Now that the disclaimer's out the way, let's just get right on into it. So I'd like to do a video on this in itself because I couldn't go into as much as I wanted to in this video, but just for information's sake, let's start with a definition of what magic is. Now, something that is collectively kind of agreed upon and sort of normally referenced is Aleister Crowley's definition, which is that magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And that was later adapted and expanded upon by Dion Fortune, who said that magic is the science and art of causing changes in consciousness in conformity with will. John Michael Greer echoes that with his definition of magic is the art and science of causing changes in consciousness in accordance with will. And one of my favourite occultists and writers, Jason Miller, expands upon Aleister Crowley's definition as well, stating magic is the science and art of influencing change to occur in conformity with will. That keyword being an important addition in Miller's opinion. He states that with that word influencing, it removes the idea that magic is a direct cause of change and instead it's an influence on change, which is an interesting way to look at it as well, and I think really valuable. I'd like to go into more of that topic in another video as well because I think it's really interesting, as well as models of magic, which we will talk about a little bit in a bit as well. I want to talk a little bit about how magic works as well because I think it's really important to kind of have an understanding of this before you go into spell work. So for magic to work, there is a connection that is built, and I am coming from an animist perspective, but there is a relationship, weaving together of consciousness and a cultivation of a relationship dynamic between the practitioner or witch and energies, spirits, the unseen, what can be understood to be external to our physical vessels, but also understanding that we are part of one bigger whole. This perspective is an animist perspective. It also comes into the models of magic as well because it is very much a spirit and energetic model, kind of meta. So we cultivate these relationship dynamics and dialogues, interconnectivity woven together of consciousness and energies with external entities, spirits, energies, be they plant spirits, animal spirits, ancestors, deities, guides, guardians, etc., and co-create together. And it's a weaving of energies, a kind of stream of energetics, as it were, becoming aligned and in tune with the energetic stream or vibration of whatever it is that you are manifesting for. And that relationship of co-creation is built upon reciprocity and receptivity. So it is a relationship and a kind of ever-evolving dance and dynamic. It's alive. Next up is a kind of liminality that allows magic to be possible. There's obviously science and art included in those definitions. A lot of what science is may have been understood to be magic a long time ago before it was understood as science, and there is obviously more of that is unknown, but a lot of what we know to be true even is still kind of inexplicable. Things about how energy works, etc., we understand aspects of that, but then there's also a liminality to it and a kind of transcendence of space-time, sort of a continuum there, which opens up and allows for you to create, co-create with the energies you're working with. And it's for this reason that many practitioners do choose to cast circles. It's not necessarily just for protection, that is a massive part of it for some people and practitioners, but it's also a container for that energy, and it's a container that is almost like a portal, a space in between, betwixt and between, and liminality of place. That's also why a lot of folk practitioners, traditional witches, etc., will practice in places between land, sea and sky, where you have that liminality, and between trees, etc. There's this portal to it, and it's also a really popular way to go into trance states, to cross an abyss and to sort of transition from one state into another, and there's a liminality, and that is where I feel that magic is made possible, in that transcendence of time, space, and the sort of continuum that you create as you commune and work with the energies that you work with in your practice. Belief is also really important here, and we're going to go into that a little bit as well because we're going to talk about paradigms, but belief in whatever it is that you are manifesting for is so vital. We're going to talk about that more, but depending upon your practice, if you're a chaos magician, for instance, you may be suspending your disbelief in order to pick up another belief, place it on you, sort of to take on the mantle of another belief that you don't necessarily believe to be true, but it's almost belief as a tool, and utilizing it as a tool in order to affect the way that you cast and what you cast for, and the way that your magic works as well. So it may be that you actually inherently do have a belief, or it may be that you're picking up a belief in order to work that way for a while, in order to change, alter your perception of something, or in order to influence change in accordance with will. But regardless of whether or not your belief is actually with the spirits that you're working with, or whether it is a belief that you've crafted for yourself, that you've taken on as part of your work as a chaos practitioner, a belief that is inherent and true within you in your ability in order to cast is crucial and vital. We'll get to that a bit later. So then, in addition to those aspects, intention and focus and direction is really, really key for magic to work as well, and to have a target for energy to push a intention forward towards whatever target it is, whatever intention it is. There is the raising of energy and that direction towards the target that we've talked about, and then there needs to be a release, and with the release there needs to be a forget about it, let it happen, along with this unwavering belief that you know it's already yours, it's already done. And that's why I love the phrase "and so it is" rather than something like "and so shall it be," because I do use both, I have used both, but I really love "and so it is." And I guess that "so mote it be," that is "and so it is," really. I really just love "and so it is." It just feels so solid and grounded, like grounded into reality for me to use that phraseology. So for the purposes of our video, let's give spellcasting a definition. And considering everything we've discussed thus far, a spell is the process of raising energy and directing that energy towards a specific target for what you wish to intentionally manifest. And you may wish to augment, enhance that spell with other correspondences, and we will get to that shortly as well. So that is a little bit about how magic works, but magic isn't just limited to spells. I understand, of course, that when beginners come to witchcraft, they often think it is just about spells, or magic is just about spells, and that is a small amount of what actually being a witch is, because there's so much more to it, and actually the relationships that you co-create, develop, are such a bigger part of it. And working on your own witch body, as it were, your energetic body, your spirit body, as well as your physical body, and learning to be in your physical body and to work on your shadows, to understand yourself more, which know thyself, to understand yourself, to be able to be responsible for what it is that you do, for the energy that you put out, and understanding that whatever you put out, it's all you as well. And no matter how much you intentionally push something towards a target, there is still an element of it that will linger within you, because it is you. And that's really important and key to remember as well, and something that people don't really talk about very much. As we discussed previously, there are lots and lots of nuances to this and lots of topics to expand upon. But before we get into how to actually cast a spell, finally, let's discuss paradigms and worldviews. So I did touch on this briefly before, but what I do want to say is that, like at the beginning when I stated some of it might be relevant for you, some of it might not, it does depend on what your practice is, whether you are coming at this from a Wiccan perspective, or a chaos magician's perspective, a folk witch's perspective, a traditional witch's perspective, or someone who is just interested in manifestation. And also considering your cultural background, the way you work, the way you live, the way you show up in the world, how your energy is, whether you do your shadow work, whether you do your healing work, whether you take responsibility for yourself, etc. And what paradigms you ascribe to, what you believe in. Do you practice witchcraft without having a spiritual aspect to your practice? Is your practice atheist? These are all valid practices in themselves, but it will mean that there are slight nuances and differences in the ways that you will go about crafting a spell and manifesting a spell, depending upon all of these factors, cultural nuances as well, and your upbringing, your beliefs, etc. So it's really, really important to understand that it's your practice and that what you do is valid. As long as it works for you, as long as you're not hurting anyone, as long as you're taking responsibility for what you do, it's your practice. So you do what is right for you, and it's important to remember that if you have a particular practice that you were raised with that is true for you in your heart and that you believe in, and you want to work in that way, and that following a particular model or a particular spirituality or no spirituality and just craft, that's also valid, and you run with that. You do what works for you. Traditionally, magic was either considered to be thaumaturgic or theurgic. Theurgical magic is a desire to be connected and to kind of ascend, to be one again with the divine. Whereas thaumaturgic is much more of a earthy practice, manifesting and making things happen in an earthly plane. And I would say that most of what a lot of practitioners do is thaumaturgic. However, there probably likely is going to be a theurgical kind of aspect to a practice for a lot of people as well. But a lot of that working with deity is also to create change on an earthly plane, to create changes in real life, so that the two do come together. There's also natural magic, which was considered to be magic of plants and the stars, the planets. Natural magic is of the earth, what is in our everyday lives, and so that's interesting to consider as well. And in terms of models of magic, there is, of course, the spirit model and the energy model. Those two models I definitely align with myself very strongly. Then there's a psychological model, which I do lean into because I'm a big fan of Carl Jung and his work, and utilizing archetypes, especially with regards to looking at mythologies, etc., and folklore, and understanding that, unpicking it and analyzing it in terms of looking at ourselves and our own personalities, etc. And I think a lot of the shadow work that I do involves a lot of that work, so that's really, really key as well for me. Then there is an information model, and there's also a meta model, which is kind of like a grouping of all the models. I don't tend to focus too much on what my model is, to be honest. I do what I do and it works for me. There's a lot of energy work in my practice, as you'll probably know if you're here, and there's also a lot of deity work, working with ancestors, working with spirits, so the spirit model too works very much for me. Traditionally, magic was seen to be from a spirit model perspective because the older grimoires necessitate a kind of connection to different spirits, whether they were angels or demons, and even if they were in that kind of forceful dynamic in terms of, you know, compelling a spirit to do what you want and to manifest in a certain place, etc., which, yeah, isn't exactly my bag. But so that's some context before we go into the point of the video. So to cast a spell, there are a number of steps that you do want to take into consideration when you are crafting and casting a spell. First of all, you want to be prepared. So this means you want to know what it is that you're casting for. This comes into the intention as well, but we're not going to get to actually writing or deciding upon our intention yet. What we want to know for ourselves is, what is the situation? What has gone down? What is it that you're casting for? Is it something just for yourself that doesn't really impact others? Because it may still impact others. If it's something that you're casting for that you want, that other people might be up for as well, like a job, say, or if it's something like someone's done something to you and you want to exact something, well, you're going to need to look at what your ethics are. So this is where it's really, really key and important to know what your ethics are as a witch, how far you're willing to go, what you're willing to give up in terms of your practice and understanding yourself and where you're at. You also want to know, I think, need to have a bit of a picture about what is happening and how things might change, because one thing I think some people do is rush into spell work when it's not necessarily the time. And I think timing with spell work, and I'm not talking about magical timing, I'm not talking about planetary hours, I'm not talking about the days. Yes, very important, very key, really cool, you know, working with the moon, etc. That's awesome. But what I'm talking about is timing, because you actually might not need to do anything to cast. You could cast without anything. You could cast without casting a spell, and we'll get into that in another video because it's kind of a bit more of an advanced thing and it sort of necessitates an awareness of who you are again and how you work, etc. But casting doesn't necessarily mean casting. But do you actually need to cast this spell right now? If it's something like protection magic, you go ahead, because it's not going to have the kind of same impacts that other spells may. So if, for instance, in your work environment, someone has done something really crappy to you and you want to avoid them or get away from them, if you rush into a spell without considering all of the moving parts, as it were, you may find that you kind of shoot yourself in the foot inadvertently when you didn't even need to, because something else might transpire. This is where you really need to be living your witchcraft becomes your everyday life, and when you are the magic, you know, it's not necessarily that you need to cast for everything, because being in the environment you will know exactly what's going on, be aware of the energies going on, because it's quite likely that someone does something crappy to you in a work environment, they're doing it to somebody else. And also mundane action, so are you actually doing things in the mundane to affect change as well, because you may not need to do anything at all spell wise. And I'm not saying that spell work is not necessary, I'm just talking to you about what you want to be aware of, because it's quite possible to shoot yourself in the foot inadvertently, go and do a spell, and then you find out that, you know, you are overlooked for a promotional project, for instance, that involves this person as well. However, if you were to bide your time, perhaps feel out the energies, see what is going on and be smart about the situation, you can wait for the right time and understand exactly what kind of working you want to do in order to create the right change that you need to see. Because it might be that other people are also already aware of what's going on. Instead of doing a working to banish them from your life, you might only need to do a working to enhance your awareness and skills within the workplace, or you might only need to do a working to put yourself in front of the right kind of person for you to be seen in the right light for a certain promotional,
which might result in you working away from this person and having complete distance from them.
So if you feel out the energies, you may, for instance, not need to cast a spell to remove this person from your life, simply casting to enhance your own abilities within the workplace, or casting to be seen in a really, really great light by your superior might actually be the right thing for you to do in the circumstances. And if you feel it out, wait a little bit, see how the energies are. And other people might have already complained about a person, and they might be removed without you needing to express any concern at all or do a banishment of this person from your life. You might not need to do the extreme of what you're thinking you need to do. So it's really, really key to be clear on what it is that you need and what you want. It's also really key to be in the right state of mind when you are considering and planning a spell, as well as when you are casting. Now, I have cast in certain states before, emotional states and angry states and empowered states, and results have been very, very specific, very powerful. However, they can also be overpowering, they can be quite rapidly expansive, and they may not always go to plan. And I can talk more about this in another video. They may be powerful, they may be successful, but not always how you imagine. And in retrospect, you can see how casting in certain emotional states can certainly impact the power and the force of your spell, when actually you may only need a subtle little shift, like a little, and you have exactly what you want. It's almost like, I love colouring as an art form, as a medium. Often it's about layering. I love layering correspondences with spell work and layering with the magic that I do. So layering when you're using coloured pencils is really important, and quite often it looks like a hot mess, and several hours later it will look real. It will look like realism. A lot of the time what it's about is a light hand and a light touch, light pressure, soft, light layers, and a gentle circular motion with the hand. So using that as an analogy, my colouring, you need a light hand. So just consider that when you are thinking about what it is you're spelling for. In terms of protection, I think you can go balls to the wall, really, with protection. Again, as long as you're not harming, in my perspective. We will talk about baneful magic in another video. No judgment here, because my perspectives are probably different than you imagine, but I will talk about that in another video, because we're not going to talk about ethics in that way here. But you need to be mindful of what your ethics are. You need to be mindful of how far you're willing to go, and it's really important and key to be very in tune with the energies around which you are casting for, especially if it involves other people, because quite quickly things can turn on a dial And that's another reason why doing a reading before spell work is really valuable as well, and oftentimes not spoken about a lot either. So if you're considering a spell, let it marinate if you can. You know, I'm just imagining that's a luxury that we have in this instance, and you really want to understand what it is you're dealing with and how you want to approach it, and really consider all aspects of what could happen, consider all the areas around it, and this planning really is important for that, and being aware, as I said, of what you believe and taking responsibility for what it is that you do. So we have a clear idea of what it is we want and need and what we're going to cast for. We know the energetics around it. We have done a tarot spread, say, and we're clear to go. It's good to go. We know exactly what we're going to be casting for. We now need to make sure that our space and our setup is ready for us, and we are ready for it. We want to be in a state of alignment, in tune with ourselves. So you might want to take a nice long walk before. You might wish to sit outside and meditate. You may wish to come home and have a bath, a soak, a cleansing bath, get yourself clean, and also prepare yourself in a meditative way for working. You may not have time for this, and so you may be coming home from work, you may only have an hour, so cleansing as quick as you can. You may wish to have a quick shower, get yourself ready, set up, and prepare yourself however you do. So maybe you will be anointing yourself with a protection oil, you'll be cleansing your space, cleansing yourself. I have 2 videos on cleansing. I have some protection videos as well on my channel, because protection will be very important, and you want to be grounded and centered. I have videos on that on my channel as well. So it's all of our energy work, and it all comes together, and depending on what your situation may be, you may want to come home from work, have a physical cleanse and a spiritual cleanse while you do it. You know, in the shower is a fantastic time to do a physical and a spiritual cleanse, and oftentimes I'll build Reiki into it and have a Reiki shower. That's really powerful. And then you might wish to cleanse your space and yourself with smoke as well as sound. Prepare yourself, get into a meditative state, breathe, allow your body to breathe. Maybe you want to do a body scan to check if there are any areas that are out of alignment. You may wish to ground and center in whatever preferred way you have to do, and then set your protections. This for you may involve casting a circle in a traditional way, either if you cast circles in a energetic way, or if you have a physical way that you would do this. You may wish to tread the mill, for instance, if you're a traditional witchcraft practitioner. There are a number of ways that you may wish to do this. You can visualize this as well, and you may also not wish to. You may just wish to cleanse your space, and if you have a space that's already set up and prepared for you, then that's also very valuable. And don't discount the fact that you will be having protections on you in terms of jewelry, amulets, you know, protections around your house, you know, shields and wards, etc. That whatever it is that you utilize in your practice on a regular basis are really important. So then you'll wish to make contact, and this depends, of course, because if you are an atheist practitioner, this may not be part of your practice at all. If you're a chaos magician, this may not be relevant, or it may be, and you'll have a specific way that you wish to do this. But interconnectivity, connecting in, is really key for me. So whether it's that I am connecting to the divine, or I may be utilizing Psalms in my spell work, and so connecting in with a Father, Son, Holy Spirit, more likely I'll be connecting in with my ancestors, spirits of place. I may be utilizing plant spirits, connecting in with Lilith, who is a deity I work with primarily at the moment, maybe the Morrigan. These are deities I work with quite frequently in my practice. I may be connecting in with the divine as a whole. So that will vary for you as well, but connecting in is really important, and making that connection. As I said, it may be relevant for some if that is part of their practice, but for others it may not be. But also, even if it is part of your practice, it will still differ between people. So whether your way in is with magic or mysticism or with religion, whether you utilize visualization or energy work, whether you feel, sense, etc., these are all things that will be different with different practitioners. And so you will connect in however you do that. Next, you will have your intention. You may have already chosen to write this out, so you may have a sentence written out. You may have prepared an incantation, you may have prepared an oil, you may have prepared an incense, a powder. The sky is the limit, really, because the whole time through this conversation we're threading in correspondences, and whatever correspondences work for you in your practice and however you work, again, you will layer this. layering is key for me in my practice, and it makes for really, really powerful spells because it makes something yours. Okay, so I have said this a lot on my channel, that since I started practicing in my teens, I think really because I came to the craft when I was 11. There wasn't the internet really then. I think that there were PCs, and then there was the internet, but it was those angel fire websites. It was just literally a poem and then rose petals and a piece of paper and a pen and a candle, and that was like your spell, you know. And I had printed out rituals to connect to the god and the goddess, you know, and that was very Wiccan. Everything was synonymous with Wicca back then. There was not the amount of information that we have access to today. There was not TikTok, there was not Pinterest, there was not Instagram, there was not YouTube. So those weren't available for us then. But I think because of that, I was forced from an early age to be creative, and I don't think I was afraid of being creative because I still had that childlike imagination that was there. And I think that tapping into that as a witch or a magical practitioner is really key as well, because a lot of it is about play and imagination and creativity. And having belief, if you struggle with belief, or belief as a tool, if you struggle with tapping into that, play and imagination is often a really, really great way to bypass that problem with belief, because you make it so by playing, by becoming the magic. Do you know what I mean? That creativity inspires more creativity and enhances it. So I think that's probably why, but I threw myself into the deep end and wrote my spells. I wrote my own spells from the beginning. And so I think that's why I've never had an issue, you know, being inspired by a spell, but basically pretty much always done my own work. Even if I've seen a ritual and like, oh, okay, I want to do that ritual, I want to, you know, speak to this goddess in this way that this writer has written about, I'll still bring in my own herbs and have my own prayers and have my own incantations and invocations and ways in which I work. And that's always been the case. So don't be afraid of that, because that is what is going to set your magic apart and make it work for you. Because if you've created it, your belief is there. Your belief is going to be so much more powerful. So don't discount that either. So as I said, your intention will need to be clear, and you'll need to have planned it ahead of time. You need to also be aware of the length and breadth of your spell and what the requirements are. So is this a one-time working, or is it a spell that you're going to repeat every day for a week? Is it going to be a spell that you renew every full moon or every new moon? Is it going to be a spell that you work every month for a year? Or is this going to be part of a cluster of spells? Or is it going to be one of many, many, many spells and rituals in a campaign working that you will be undertaking for many years? I mean, I see my self-care and self-love spells and rituals to be part of a greater self-love, self-worth, healing campaign, and part of my shadow work. It's part of that inner work for me, and that's a magical campaign. And it's much bigger than one spell, but there are usually spells that are singular, and sometimes spells that continue, spells that develop, etc. So, you know, what are the requirements of this for you? So be clear on that, and then when you have your intention, you want to make sure that it's smart. It's like a smart goal. You want to be specific. There's a caveat though, not too specific. You don't want to state the hour and day that something will manifest for you if it's not realistic, and we'll get to that bit, that it could manifest in that time frame. So you really want to be specific, but not too specific. So specific in, say, like 6 to 10 words, okay? Don't be so specific, but you want to be specific enough so that you're protecting your assets and people around you, because you don't want to be casting for money and then typical tragic story you hear about happening where somebody loses a loved one and ends up getting a down payment from them passing. You don't want that. So you need to be very specific in that way. You need to make sure that whatever it is that you are casting for is measurable. Really, that's a way that you are able to record. You need to record your workings, please. Record what you do and record your results. That's something I don't always do, but it's really important. I haven't always done it, and I still sometimes slip, but please do that, because it will really help when you're developing your practice and understanding exactly what works for you. So you want to make sure that it's measurable, and that will of course depend on what it is you're casting for and where you're going to be seeing those changes. You want to make sure that it's achievable or attainable. So it has to be realistic, right? It has to be realistic for you. And it also has to be something something within your sphere of influence. You're not going to be casting for a famous actor or actress to fall in love with you if you don't already know that actress or actor or have some connection to them via family or friends or something, that there's like a possibility that you could, even if you haven't even met them. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. It has to be realistic, it has to be achievable, attainable, and you also have to be working towards it in the mundane, and we'll talk more about that at the end because that's really important for the end. Then it needs to be time bound, but again, not too rigidly time bound. You don't have to have like a complete deadline. It needs to be time bound for it to be measurable, but also for it to, you know, follow the path of least resistance and be achievable. So yeah, depending again upon what you're casting for, this will vary. And yeah, consider your sphere of influence as well. As I said, make sure you're actually taking action in the everyday to make it happen. Your personalized intention as well is really important, that when you write this intention, that it's written in the present. You want it to be as if you already have it. So either it's in the present, now you have it. I'm so grateful for this because this has happened and I feel like this. And in this way, you're kind of creating a false reality or a true lie, I think, or like a hypersigil, like a reality in itself and living it. And it's sort of as if you already have it. How would that feel in your body? And you're imagining all that. And then you wrap all of the imagination, so involving all the senses, what it feels like in the body, etc., how you feel to have whatever it is, and then wrapping it up into a bow of your intention, so it being present. Or it's, I have this, duh, this is mine, duh. You know, this is really important and key. And you also want to make sure it's in the positive tense as well. So one thing that's really important about our brains to understand is that whatever is written is what we understand. So you can't say, I don't have any debt, because that will just make you think you have debt. You have to say that I am abundant in money and I have more than enough for my bills and more, and then some. You know, that's really messy, but you get what I'm saying. You want to see it from the positive rather than seeing a removal of a lack of something, if that makes sense. So rather than I am no longer hurt by this person, you will write I am autonomous and free within myself, or something along those lines. So then correspondences are really, really important with your intention as well. So this we talked about in the preparation. So you'll already have what it is there, but you want to know that it has meaning for you within the spell. You don't just want to be throwing things in. This is something that frustrates me so much when I see people just taking herbs and correspondences and throwing them in because they've seen it in a book. For me, it's about connecting to the spirit of whatever it is, whether that be a crystal or a plant or herb, botanical, and really connecting to that, the spirit and the energy of whatever it is in this correspondence that you're petitioning to support you with a working. Understand that it's about reciprocity and that you're not taking from them. They are not less than you, but you are petitioning them, asking for their grace and support in your endeavors. And that's a really, really important thing to remember. They are not at our disposal. That's an animist perspective as well, if that's your paradigm, like it is for me. But personally, I think that's really important. As a folk witch as well, often it's about working with what I have. I do have a lot of herbs and plants, so it's not always necessary for me to go and buy something, and certainly not necessary for me to be shipping a herb from the other side of the world that is not indigenous to my native land. It's really important that I'm utilizing what I have, and I have enough plant spirit allies in my garden and in my surrounding area, connected to the spirit of the place, the land spirits, etc., enough for me to work in that way, and it's good enough. Honestly, good enough. It's actually really powerful to do that because, again, it's so personal to you. And along these lines, you may also wish to tie in folklore. So if you are a folk practitioner, you will know about the folklore of your land or your land of origin, and you may wish to utilize some charms, folk magic, etc., healing charms or incantations, magic, etc., within your working to, again, utilize as a correspondence. So then we're coming to energy raising. So we're coming back to that energy magic we talked about at the beginning with the preparations, but also in my other videos about working with your energy body and raising energy. So raising energy can be done so many different ways. For a start, just to give you an idea, you can raise energy by chanting, dancing, treading the mill. You can use use your breath, get into a trance state. You can raise energy with focusing your eyes. You can utilize sex magic to raise energy. There are a number of ways to raise your energy, but you also want to be intent and focused on what it is that you are manifesting. So you want to be thinking about that, as I talked about before. So you really want to be focused on what it is that you are casting for, and you want to have a target for that as well, that you are focusing on, almost like a bow and arrow. So you're like pulling it back with the raising of the energy, and then you're releasing it. This is often what Wiccan circles will do, where they will have a circle cast and they will raise a cone of power, and then they will release that, and it will be going in that same direction. It will be directed towards a target. When I was talking at the start about being aware of the energetics around what it is you're casting for and who else is involved, etc., that's important because the target may be moving. So you want to be really, really aware of that for that reason too, because your target may be moving as you're trying to cast. So just be aware of that, but you want to have a clear intention, have a clear focus, and be focused on exactly what it feels in your body, as if it's manifested, as if it's already yours, because you need to know it's already yours. Or if it's something like that you're casting for, you need to know it's already so. How it feels in your body. Will you be calm, relaxed? Will you feel chilled? Will you feel abundant, blessed? Will you be laughing? How would you carry yourself in the world? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you show up in the world? All of these things you can explore. Think about touch, taste, smell, what you would hear, etc., what you'd feel, all of these things, and think about sensation in your body as well, and how the energy feels moving through you. As you're raising the energy, you can do this, and you can get as specific as you want. Something like synesthesia, which I've talked about a little bit in another video, is really, really cool, because if you have something like this, then you can allow sensations to kind of bleed with one another. You can lean into certain sensations and create more of them. It's almost like you can create a sensation within your body from nothing. I don't know if that rings true for anyone else, but it's pretty cool. So lean into whatever works for you and make it as simple or as complex as it needs to be, but don't deviate from what it is that you're focusing on, okay? So don't allow bells and whistles to distract you from what it is you're focusing on. Be clear, pull back, release. And the release then is also really key. You don't want to pull back the energy, have the focus, and then be sort of like, but will it manifest? No, that is not gonna work. You need to make sure that you release, 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 and that is my word of the year. So, and it's not really about spell work, it's more about releasing the need for control, releasing the need for other people to validate me, or, you know, for other people to like me. Like, I'm so over it. Right, nearly 40. Okay, that side, you need to release it. And a lot of that as well has to do with the belief that we talked about from the beginning. You need to know that it's already yours, it's already done, but you also need to take inspired action, because you probably will receive downloads, you may have dreams, you may have messages from deity, spirit, you will probably be inspired to do certain things, but there will also be things that you'll know you'll need to do anyway in the mundane world to follow up. So do those things, but don't focus on what you've done. Don't think, oh, should I have used this herb instead of that herb? Don't think, oh, my prayer was so messy, I shouldn't have said this, I should have said that. Don't allow yourself to go there. Just don't. And I know I've said don't do that, but it's quite difficult, isn't it? If someone tells you not to think about a pink elephant, you're thinking about a pink elephant. So it's about moving on, you know, just like go do something else. Go have a cup of tea, go for a walk, go meditate in a garden, go read a nice novel, go play with your kids, go play with your dogs, or, you know, go see some friends. Chill, go about your life, and know it is so. Just have complete faith and trust without any kind of questioning, that unwavering faith, and that is your kind of roadmap essentially of casting. And then I would suggest that you keep a magical journal or a book of shadows or a grimoire. I mean, usually I like to think of a grimoire as something that is like beautiful and something that will have everything that's within it like all polished and dusted, rather than like a magical journal working. But people will refer to things as different terms, and that's absolutely fine, whatever works for you. But have something, even if it's just a notebook or your notes app on your phone, just to jot things down, but do back up whatever you write on your phone. Just keep a magical log of what it is that you experience then and what happens. And you may find that secrets come out of the woodwork. You may find that people approach you and things seem to be happening in synchronicity. These are quite often things that will occur, depending again on what it is you're casting for. There we are, essentially, we've come to the end of the video. I hope that that has given you a bit of an idea if you are new to this. I hope it's given you something to chew on if you are intermediate or advanced practitioner and you are just considering things from a different perspective, or if you are going back, retracing your steps, understanding more of what it is that you do. I feel that for me, incrementally, as my path has expanded and diverged and developed, that going back to these basics all the time has been so valuable, because it's enabled me to see that, oh, when I was doing this, it was actually an aspect of this part of a magical working that I was expanding upon and developing upon, and then through that I then discovered this way of working, or that I discovered this to be true for this, and that in more circumstances than not, this might transpire as a result of that. And so that's what, again, why the magical record keeping is so important as well, because every practice is going to be unique. Every person is going to have a different way that they practice, again, as I talked about at the start. So there's a lot of nuance that goes into this. I hope that it has helped though, and if you have anything that you'd like to share or add, please do feel free to pop a comment in the comments box below. I would love to read. I am going to be trying my best to get back to some of the comments from the other videos soon. I apologize for my delay. I've been ill, as many of you know. I was ill in December. I've also been ill through most of January with a really nasty infection, but I'm getting there now. So yeah, hopefully onwards and upwards. And really enjoyed being here with you today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Do leave me a comment below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you tried any of these, if it's given you some other ideas, or if you have anything to expand upon, please pop it in the comments box below. Please like, share with anyone who you think would also enjoy, and subscribe, of course. You can also support me on Patreon. I'm going to be sharing some more video content there soon, and I've got a few ideas of some things that I'd like to share coming up this year as well on there. But if you have any other ideas about Patreon, let me know below. I'm also thinking of doing memberships here on YouTube, and there is the super thanks. There's also a buy me a coffee page as well, and a direct PayPal link if you'd like to support me further. Then in addition to Patreon and the other ways to support I've talked about, just watching, liking, subscribing, commenting all help, and sharing, of course. There's also Instagram, which I am very active on, as well as TikTok, which I'm not active on at the moment, but there is content for a few years past on there if you'd like to see. Also, if you have made it to the end of the video, I'd really love to see a pen emoji. Is there a pen emoji? A pen or a pencil emoji, if there is one, and if not, like a book would be great. I'd love to see those. I always love seeing those. And yeah, thank you again so much for joining me. I hope you stay well and safe, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video really soon. Take care. Many blessings. Mwah. Bye.